Land of the Emu People by Percy Trezise. Introduction. Aboriginal oral history tells of hundreds of dream roads crisscrossing the Australian continent, which were made by ancestral beings during their travels at the beginning of Dreamtime. It also tells of a vast freshwater lake at the top of Australia and stories about ancestors like the Antamoola sisters. There is also scientific evidence to suggest that 36,000 years ago there was a large freshwater lake at the top of Australia. Scientists called it the Lake of Carpentaria, and it was also known as Ballinaga, the Big Water. This is the story of three children and their journey around Ballinaga, along the dream road of the Antamoola sisters to find their way home. Jadianta, Lande and Jalmor survived a trip across the vast Lake Ballinaga during a great storm. To find their way home, they have travelled through the land of the Dingo people and the land of the Magpie Goose people, facing fierce crocodiles and giant goannas. They are in new and unfamiliar land. Gubala and his wife Labamore have been fishing upstream when they saw Jadianta's smoke signal. They decided to camp with the Kadimakara children because it was nearly dark, and at night the crocodiles in the river were dangerous. The next morning they all paddled across the river, and Gubala pointed out the pathway of the Antamoola sisters leading south, saying that if they followed it for 2 days they would find some emu people in a lakeside camp. Lande and her dingo Laska led the way, followed by Jadianta and little Jalmor. They lit fires so that the emu people would know they were coming. 2 nights later, the children of the Kadimakara people arrived at the emu camp. It was joking time around the cooking fires, and the happy people welcomed the Kadimakara children, having seen their morning smoke signals, and showed them a vacant gunya. While they were eating, Jadianta told the emu people of their adventures since the great storm. Later, young dancers painted their bodies and mimed the storm-tossed voyage, the crocodile attack, and the battle of the giant goannas. The land of the emu people was close to the land of the snake people, the Pungalungas, who were very dangerous. The emu people urged the 3 young wayfarers to stay a few days with them before continuing their long journey home. The emu language was similar to Dingo and other languages of the Western Shore that the children had learned, and the children found it easy to understand. Lande and Jadianta decided Jalmor should have a few days' rest and time to play with the emu children. Lande joined a group of girls and women to gather water lily bulbs and seeds, while Jadianta and the other boys went with the men who were going to burn grass to keep green shoots growing for the animals. They would also spear wallabies flushed out by the fire. The grasslands were burnt in patches, fires being set only where there was old dry grass under the new grass. Burning patches every few days provided a constant supply of green grass well into the dry season and made hunting easy as the men knew where the grazing animals would be feeding. The larger animals, kangaroos, emus, and katamakara, didn't mind the fires burning near them, but the tall grass was the smaller wallabies' cover, and the fires forced them to flee into the open where eager spearmen waited. The fire stick party was nearing camp, carrying their wallabies when they heard a distant wailing. It came from a group of women running toward the camp from the other side. Something dreadful had happened. The women said a raiding party of Pungalunga men had snuck up on them at the Lily Lagoon and carried off 3 girls. The women had fought the raiders with their digging sticks, but were clubbed down by the big Pungalunga men. One of the missing girls was Lande. Jadianta was stunned and horrified, as was little Jalmor, who wailed and cried. Jadianta tried to comfort his younger brother. He said, "We will get her back from the terrible Pungalungas. We will not go home without Lande. We must find her somehow." A party of young emu warriors had gathered together and set off at a run for the Lily Lagoon to pick up the tracks. The raiders must be caught before they reach the safety of their own country, the land of the snake people. The emu warriors had dingoes with them to continue tracking at night. In the middle of the next day, the emu people were disappointed to see the warrior band returning empty-handed. The Pungalungas had beaten them to the Boundary River and crossed to safety among their numerous warriors. The emu people told Jadianta that the Pungalungas, or snake men, had always beaten them in battles. Only now they had a secret weapon, the Woomera people, whose country lay on the far side of the snake people, had invented a spear thrower which enabled a spear to be hurled 3 times further than a hand-thrown spear. However, the emu people did not want to attack. They did not want to reveal their secret weapon yet. Jadianta met Dougal and Marnie, brothers of the 2 girls captured with Lande. Jadianta said, "The emu warriors cannot invade snake country, so we must rescue our sisters on our own. We must find out where the girls are being held." Jadianta called Laska and held Lande's headband out for her to smell. He placed it around her neck and said, "Go to Lande, find Lande." Laska gave him a steady stare. Gently pushing her southward, he kept saying, "Lande, find Lande." The little dingo trotted south. She understood her mission. 2 days later, Jadianta was awakened at dawn by Laska licking his face. The headband was gone from her neck. Instead, she wore Lande's wallaby tooth necklace. Laska had found Lande and would be able to lead them to her. Jalmor cried and hugged the little dingo. The emu boys, Dougal and Marnie, said they should travel at night because the Pungalungas were terrified of evil spirits they called Mulgans, which roamed after dark. The moon cycle was just ending, and there would be no moon for the next 2 nights. It was the perfect time to go. Jadianta, Dougal, Marnie, and Laska walked all day until they reached the river on the boundary of snake country. Shallow water on a rocky bar provided a crossing safe from crocodiles, and the 3 boys and their dingo hid among reeds to await nightfall, eating food from their dilly bags. When it was dark, Laska led the way. Jadianta saw that the dingo was following the dream road of the Antamula sisters. They would have to travel this way again. All night they walked, circling out at times to pass groups of flickering campfires. Just on dawn they reached the lake shore, and the growing light of the rising sun revealed a small island nearby with many gunyas, Lande's prison. The island was only a spear throw away, and the boys hid in some reeds to watch old women paddling walpers over and back. They realized that the captive girls were going to be held there until they were old enough to marry. The old women were guards, and as no walpers were left on the island at night, the girls could not escape. The boys waited till dark, then untied a walper each and paddled across. Laska leapt ashore and vanished among the gunyas. In a short while, the waiting boys saw 4 shadowy figures approaching with Laska. They were their 3 sisters with a younger girl. Lande hugged Jadianta and helped her new friend, a young girl, Wonga Bell of the Woomera clan, and Laska on to the walper. The girls had all stolen paddles for the rescue they hoped would come out, and together they paddled swiftly to shore. On reaching Snakeland, they fell into single file, trotting after the little dingo as she led the way north. The sun was much higher as they neared the shallow crossing, and it was then they heard the sounds of pursuit. The alarm had been sounded on the island, and a large party of Pungalunga warriors were racing for the crossing. They were close behind as Jadianta and the others ran through the shallow water. Jadianta splashed along after the girls and Laska. He was worried. He knew they could not run fast enough, and the fastest Pungalungas would catch them before they reached the other side. The Pungalungas would kill the 3 boys and recapture the girls. All was lost. Then his heart leapt with new hope. Spears were flying overhead. It was the emu people. When the emu people realized the 3 boys had gone to rescue their sisters, they sent a large party of emu warriors to set up an ambush at the crossing. They hurled Woomera-flung spears from behind bushes to keep their new weapon secret, and now the Pungalungas were falling everywhere. The Pungalungas fell back in disarray, dragging their dead and wounded with them, and howling in fury as they saw the party of boys and girls disappear into the bushes. Jadianta was overjoyed to have Lande back. He thanked Dougal and Marnie and the Emu warriors for their help, but now he had realised that the Pungalunga people of the Snake and Kangaroo clans were a fearful barrier they had yet to cross on their long journey home. Jadianta, Lande and Jalmor continue to travel the dream road of the Antamula sisters, and in the land of the Snake people they meet their strongest adversaries so far. They will have to cross many boundaries, travel through the land of the Snake people, and face the ferocious Kangaroo people on their long journey ahead. Will they ever see their family again? Glossary. Ancestral beings. People who came down from the stars at creation time and turned into every species of life on Earth, animal and plant. Antamula sisters. Two ancestral beings who travelled around Balanorga during dream time. Balanorga. The name for the Great Lake. Bala equals big, Norga equals water. Dingo people. A clan on the west side of the creek. Dream Road. The path of an ancestral being during dream time. Gunya. A shelter. Kadimakara. A bullock-sized marsupial similar to a wombat. Kadimakara People. A clan on the east side of the lake. Mulgans. A snake word for evil spirits. Pungalungas. Both snake and kangaroo people with deep-set eyes and sloping foreheads. Walpers. Rafts. Wamiras. A sling used to throw spears.